The following presentation was recorded live at the Richmond Marriott in Richmond, Virginia for the 29th Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers Convention. This is tape number 7. All marketing is local.
And then everybody in the room started singing with her, and I thought I was sitting there, what is going on, And then I realized everybody in the room is a singer. So it was sort of a different experience for me as a non-caller, because everybody was a great MC, everybody was a great Toastmaster, everybody was a great singer, and so I felt really left out, as I still do. But fortunately, I've got 3 really good people here who do have the word. I'm just going to say a couple words, and then they're going to do the bulk of it. Then we're going to have a period for questions and answering, because I think that's really important. There's no use my getting into the marketing program, because it would take too long, and this is about local marketing, what clubs can do while we wait for, and it's not going to happen overnight, a kind of national changing of the image, which is important, and while we try to make you guys start to understand and make adjustments to these baby boomers and Xers, which is where the bulk of the activity is taking place. The good news is that I was at a convention, a conference last week, as I mentioned this morning, and I spent some time with the guy who's head of the Association of Fitness Centers, the largest organization of its kind. 5,000 of the top spas and fitness people belong to this association. And he tells me that the largest increase in age group within this whole activity is not what you see on these television ads, where you see these beautiful young hard bodies who never need to exercise in their life in these commercials. On the contrary, the fastest growing area is 55 and over. So our market is there, and they're very interested in fitness. My whole goal in what I've been doing is to try to get you guys to understand, and more important, the clubs to understand, that we have a lot of ways to present this thing. Jim mentioned that this morning, and I was really pleased to see that. You have an incredible activity, one of the best products in the world. I said originally, the most politically correct, healthiest social activity in the world today. But it doesn't necessarily have to look at the form, as I mentioned this morning, is not as important as the content and message. So we've got to become comfortable with seeing this as a group of women at a Weight Watchers Club doing in sweats a square dance routine at a higher tempo as exercise. Tony Oxidine came back for last year at a meeting, and he was all kind of bemused. He said, those people showed up in Denmark. He said, they were all in sweats, and they asked me to call fast. They must think this is exercise. And I said, duh, I've been trying to tell you that for, a year and a half. There's so many different formats in which we can present this, because you've got a group of people who have a different mindset. You've got to make up your mind, folks, that the intergenerational difference between World War II and the so-called boomer generation and their underlings, the Xers, and that's 100 million people. By the way, that is your market. That is our market. That's everybody's market, for goodness sakes. There has never been in the history of the world this kind of difference. And that mindset, by the way, is still there. It started in 1972, 3, 4, 5, as these people reached 21 years of age. And I talked not too long ago with the AARP people about a joint venture we're trying to put together with them. And they said, well, what's your target group? I said, boomers. And they said, nothing. And I said, what's wrong? He said, well, lots of luck. I said, what do you mean? Well, what we do, Jim. I said, yeah, AARP, when you get to be 49 in this country, you get this little application in the mail, and it's a good deal, and everybody joins. She said, that's right. About 89% of you have been joining consistently for the last 30 years. But 5 years ago, which is when the boomers started to reach 49, 5 and 6 years ago, we started to get a different percentage. I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, after 5 years of watching this, we're getting 23%. This group of people did not want to join in 1972, and they don't want to join in 202. So you do have a mindset that is there. It's there for life. It's part of the way they think and who they are. And to be able to understand that and adjust to it, and this is a generation of people who, the have it your way is not just a fine advertising slogan for Burger King. It's a mantra for a whole generation of people. So to be able to be flexible enough to see this as an exercise, to see this as a historical reenactment as part of a reenactment of a battle that takes place, or we did a thing down in Southern California where a guy who used to know a lot of the old calls, so he did his whole ad campaign for the first 3 were come out and see this great historical recreation of the way your great-grandmother used to dance and grandfather used to dance. And I convinced him to go ahead and make a contest out of costumes. So for 3 sessions, people came out not any way knowing this was a square dance class to learn how to square dance. But for 3 sessions, they thought they were going to see, and each time he had one. He started out, in the early part of this country, maybe probably the early 1800s, and then he came in with a dance that was associated with the Western movement and the Go program in the West, and then he came in with the 1920s dance. And so what people came out to do was to experience, to be part of an experience of a recreation of what their grandmother and great-grandmother and grandfather did. And in the process, he was able to teach them probably 2/3 of the dances he would have taught them anyway. But what they experienced was, or what they thought they were getting, was a recreation of a historical dance. And we had a costume party, and by the end of the 3rd session, the people who had the best costumes won nice prizes, and they didn't realize it, but they were getting stuck with square dancing. And they loved it. And that's all I'm saying. My only purpose is to try to get people to understand that this activity can be viewed, experienced in a variety of ways. And if we're going to get to these people to get them in the door, once you get them in the door, you can give them the same old stuff. But if you don't get them in the door, you don't have that shot at them. And so that's all I have to say, and I'd like to. Is there a pecking order here that you guys would like? Or Jerry? Okay. Gerry Hardy, I think you folks probably all know. And
okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. My name is Gerry Hardy, and I've been calling for about 11 years. And I would like to impress upon all of you that the fact is that you are the best marketing tool you have. You, as a caller, are the best marketing tool you have. And one of the things that I like to do when I have a first fun night is just go right out to these brand new people and ask them a question. Ask them who they are. And we have John Sweeney and Beppy Dryden here. Is this your first Caller Lab? Your first Caller Lab. And let me get that right on the mic. Is this your first Caller Lab, Beppy?
This is my first Caller Lab.
And where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey.
You're from New Jersey, but John is from?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Are you enjoying yourself? So far, yeah, good. I hope I remember to put this mic by you each time. Otherwise, you're not going to get on the tape, and you deserve to be. We're so happy to have you here. We really are. And this is one of the other things that callers can do, just going around to everybody. Now, I know you're not brand new. Say your name on the mic.
My name is Gene Triplett from North Carolina.
And this is your lovely wife?
Yes, Connie Triplett.
We're so happy to have you here. That's great. So one of these things is just going out, and Chuck and I wore these shirts just to impress upon you that you should be on fire about square dancing. The shirts, yes, have little flames right roaring off the lapels of our shirts, and we just want to impress upon you how you can become on fire about square dancing and really enjoy going out into this crowd. And I see somebody I want to get on the mic here who is just such a wonderful person, and this is
Anna Dixon with the Square Dance Foundation of New England.
Right. Well, Anna and I go pretty far back. She probably goes farther back with a lot of other people than me, but we get along so well, and her wonderful husband, Mill, is back there, too. But, going out into a group of people who are brand new to a convention or brand new to a dance is the best way you can get to know them right away, and they identify with you, especially when you're trying to teach them new moves, because they're very nervous most of the time. Okay, I have a few more things on my list that I want to go through, and my part of this talk is called Fun Night to Graduation. Marketing is all the time, from the very first moment they come into the door. The music is the first thing they're going to hear, really, and Chuck and I like to have music on right away. Doesn't necessarily have to be a square dance hoedown. It could be contra music. I have a preference for fiddle music, so a lot of the time fiddle music is on, and that gives them that feeling for the hoedown. When they're first dancing, we like to have something that they really can put their foot down. I remember Marshall Flippo saying at some dance or another, this music will be hard for you to put your foot down, but we don't want that kind of music. We want music that's, you can really put your foot down on that downbeat so that they get that feel for the music right from the start, right from that circle left. We use singers every tip, no matter whether it's the first night or whether it's the graduate. Every tip we have a singing call. But I don't necessarily want to use a showstopper. Like the first thing I did tonight, because we didn't have the mic, give my regards to Broadway, I wouldn't use that on a fun night or a first night or probably any class night, because it's not meant for a showstopper. It's not meant to impress them. I want to use something always that's going to have a good beat and give them the feeling of dancing all the time, not to impress them with my singing or anything like that. Most of these people will be from your community. Be careful in the music that you choose, and careful not to offend anybody in the community, and you have to judge for yourself what kind of music you use in that regard. I use a lot of classics. Chuck's use a lot of classic music, meaning music that they can sing along with. Chuck, help me out here. We got someone that we can do. Summertime that Jim mentioned isn't really one that I would say everybody knows well enough to sing along with.
Country music songs that they've heard on the radio that they really love, they can sing along with. Yeah, but If
You Knew Susie is a good one that Chuck does, and they all can. Or Goody Goody is one that I do, and they all kind of can chime in with that. If it's a dance that is for school-age children or for father-daughter sort of thing, I always start with a snail trail. And for a Western-style square dance club, I wouldn't start with that. I always start with circles. But I find that the snail trail, and if you don't know what that is, it's just a long, hands-joined, snaky trail that eventually will wind up into itself. Ball yarn, you can call it ball yarn too, and unwind. It's really, logistically speaking, it's an interesting thing to lead, because you have to be very careful that everybody ends inside, facing in rather than facing out of the center of the circle. So I always have a good time with that. But as far as Western-style square dancing, I always start with a circle for the beginning calls, and I feel this gives a real unifying factor. Everybody can see each other. They can see me. I'm usually in the center of the circle. So that gives a community feel. And people that are maybe feel a little uncomfortable at this time, dancing, holding hands, this sort of thing, you want them to feel as comfortable as you can from the beginning. So a circle, I don't go to squares right away. A circle is the way to go as far as I'm concerned. Now, the caller teacher, I think the primary thing is you have to have a good sense of humor, a connection with the floor immediately, and going out into the audience, going out into the, well, they are your audience, before the dance even starts and getting to know people, I think that is your first connection. And then you can make eye contact with these people in the circle. By sense of humor, I don't mean jokes. That can really be touchy. Any jokes. I mean, kind of self-deprecating humor. You should be the brunt of most of the humor if you can, and this leaves a lot of the pressure off anybody in the hall. It's always self-deprecating. Names, learn names right away, and make sure the people have badges on. From the very beginning, they love to have they really like it when you know their name and you can say their name. You don't have to ask their name. And if they don't have badges, some clubs don't get to the point of giving everybody badges or making people make them out. Learn a technique for learning names. I teach school, and I have about 400 names of kids that I have to remember, and then in another school I have another maybe 150 because I'm half-time in another school. And there's just something about learning a person's name, a connection with it. A lot of you probably have your own little techniques and everything, but learning their names is primary. I'm taking a wellness course. That sounds funny, but I'm taking a wellness course through my school. And a lot of it is breathing techniques, which is great for singers. But one of the primary quotes that I got from this course so far is, quote, "Greatest act of love is truly listening to a person." And I think when you make that connection with a brand new person who comes in the door, who you want to stay for the rest of the whole 9 yards of Western South Square dancing, if you can make that connection with them and really listen to them and show that you care, that they're there, that they will stay. They really, really will stay because they feel that connection with you. Shake hands. That bonding is wonderful. Take the time to listen. Take the time to listen to each person. One of the tricks I learned from Tony Oxidine was one time we were at a huge dance, and Tony was going around mixing with the crowd and shaking hands with everybody sitting along the edge of the hall. One thing he did, he got right down on their level. He knelt down and talked to them right eye level. Rather than bending over, he talked to them on eye level. As I did over here with Beppy and her partner, John. Thank you, John, for that cue. I sat down and I talked to them. Eye level, real important. Ask questions. Ask questions. Who they are, where they come from. People love to talk about themselves. They really, really do. The pace of the class is very important. Chuck has some ideas on this also. There is a lot of pressure from the club, and many times, especially if you're teaching from the beginning and it's a plus club, there is pressure from the club. But make sure you take that class in your hands and just take them at the pace that you want them to go at. We feel very strongly about that. And every class is different. Every class has their slower learners, quote, slower learners, and people who learn in different ways, and you've just got to find that way of teaching them. And if you find that way, then they will stay. But if you pressure them and push them, they won't. They won't stay. It'll be too much, and they don't want a lot of pressure. That's not what they came for. The angels in the club, I think that they're a very important part. If you use angels, some caller teachers prefer not to even use angels, but we do at our clubs, and we require a certain number in order for it to be a true dance night. The minimum is 2 squares, and that's including class people. And we really feel it's very important to have a required number of angels so that it feels like a dance and not just a group of 8 people meeting together. Meetings beforehand with the angels are important because they will make an impression. As club members and as club representatives, they will make an impression on these brand new people. And you want that impression to be very good that first night. Membership of class members I have down next, and a lot of clubs vary this. They don't become members until graduation. Some are members right away. I think that's probably up to the club. Club dances, we're very strong in the club accommodating the new dancer right away. The clubs that we teach at, one is a mainstream club, one is a plus club. The plus club has accommodated the mainstream dancers. And if they can dance right away, they'll feel part of this community, and that's what we want, to keep them there. Dress code, we're not fussy about dress code at all. And we find, as probably most of you have, as you know, they're kind of really wary about the petticoats and bolos, but I think that eventually they kind of find it kind of fun and part of a costume dress-up sort of thing. We use a lot of gifts. Yes?
You mentioned dress code. That's for the students. How about the angels? How about the angels? What do the angels wear?
We don't require dress code for angels, and that was Chuck Zaworski. Thank you. We don't require dress code for the angels, and they're just for class night. And as far as dance night, that is their preference also. Some women come in prairie skirts. I don't think I've ever seen women come in slacks for a dance night, but they do come in slacks for teaching. For a fun night, one of our clubs does dress for a fun night, but we don't require, as callers, we don't require them to dance in the costume for fun night for the first night. As I was saying before, we give a lot of gifts out as callers, and these are promotional as well as thank you gifts, and I think the newer dancers really like to receive them. I think they really do. Yeah, a question. These gifts are pens that we have with our logo on it, and anything you want to add to that?
Well, sometimes we have door prizes. I think at our dances, everybody seems to like the 50-50, so we just expand on that a little bit, and we have door prizes. Little things like clocks or umbrellas or things like that we purchased. And sometimes at our graduating class, we'll give out gifts to the graduates of a little remembrance.
We give not subscriptions, but a sample of each of the magazines also. In our local area, we have the New England Square Dancer and Grand Square in New Jersey and the American Square Dance. We give examples of these. And there's actually, each one of these magazines will give you samples to hand out. So you can get a number of them. We usually like to give a packet of information also to each one of the new dancers so that they have information on local dances, they have information on dress code, they have information on etiquette, et cetera, et cetera. And my last thing to talk about is community, representation in community. Most of my students that I teach know that I'm a Western-style square dancer. Most of the teachers know and love square dancing, and I use it in a lot of my concerts that I give. I have used square dancing many times, and it always comes across very, very well. I do local fun nights for PTAs, and this is always a good thing for representing square dancing and giving it a really good, wholesome representation, because this is what families are interested in. Many, many times, and this is so unfortunate, when you say you're associated with square dancing, most people think barn dancing and drinking, and they associate the two, unfortunately. We've got to get away from that. We really, really have to impress upon people that square dancing, Western-style square dancing, and modern Western-style square dancing is a wholesome activity and can be used in many family situations, group activities. We use a lot with photography in our fun nights for any fun night that we do, mostly Girl Scouts with their dads, father-daughter dinners, and PTA and church groups. And every time we go to one of these, Chuck will take a picture of the group and have it available on our website. Now, this doesn't mean that anybody can see these pictures, because, of course, many of them are with children. So they're always password protected, and Chuck will talk more about that when he talks about the website. We are very involved in presenting good community programs, and I think that our enthusiasm generates that. And now I'm going to turn it over to my husband, Chuck, and he's going to talk a little bit about our website and what he does with that.
Yeah, not necessarily our website, but just the internet in general. I think it's a cost-effective way to present publicity to the public in general, and I think that's, quite frankly, one of maybe our problems in the past, is it's been expensive to get television time, it's been expensive to send out, especially now with the postage going up and up and up, sending out mailers, sending out personal letters, keeping in contact with people for publicity purposes. We do use the newspaper in some pay-per-ad occasions. Most of the time, there's times when we just put our dances in just to note them. And I think it's important that we do that, not necessarily only for our dancers, but for the public, to know that we exist and that we are there, we're out there, we have dances on a regular basis. And sometime you can include the fun things that we do. We have a chili night or a Valentine's dance or something like that. So it creates a positive impression to the community that read the community calendar. Specifically, our host on the web is planetmind.net, and we've really gained a lot of experience from them, because sometimes it's good to look around and see who's successful and what they're doing. And it's my son's business, and he's been hosting a lot of bluegrass music groups, and they've been very successful in using the webs to promote their music and their travels, and so forth. So we've used some of the things from the bluegrass area to try to promote our square dancing. And as I said, our site is located there. We have a number of clubs sites that's located there. We have caller sites located there, and associations that are located on the web. So there's a tremendous amount of publicity, communication that we can do on the web for a relatively little expense. And if you're involved in really what is taking place out there, probably a good place to start was with the clients. You can just go to planetmind.net and you look at clients, and we're there, Gerry's there, Tony Oxendine's there, Gerry's Stories. The clubs, all the clubs are located there. And you can do very, very simple things to communicate with your club by just having the schedule out there. One of the things that we do with some of the clubs is we have a photo album attached to the schedule so that it really personalizes our activity. I would say be careful as to what you put out there. You should have the permission of the people and present a very positive image. People having a great time square dancing and smiling and so forth, and sometimes, maybe enjoying some refreshment or something like that. But make a positive image, and I think even the people that are in the club, the experienced people, like to see their pictures out there, like to see that we're active, we're out there. The web is a place to be, and if we associate with the web, we're not only modern Western style square dancing, but we have that modern touch too. What is your website? I'm not sure if that's appropriate, but it's pretty easy. It's chuckandgerry.com. Oh, planetmind.net. Just Mind, PLANETMIND.net.
Yeah, Lyle Beck from USDA asking what the website was.
Yeah. And the only reason I say that's kind of an easy place you can go to. You can look up clients, and you can see what all the bluegrass people are doing to promote their activity, and you can also see what the callers are there, the clubs are there, and we're there. So it's just kind of a nice place to get the links.
Chuck Jaworski. Chuck Jaworski. Do you actually have people sign a waiver then to use their pictures?
No, we haven't really done that. I don't know if that's really necessary or not. We know the club members. We find that when we go out to fun nights, we cross the line, you might say, and that's when we ask the people to we password protect the sites, and we ask the people holding the event if they would mind, so that really only their people that are attending the events can really get to see the pictures of the Girl Scouts or the church events and so forth like that. With the clubs, we generally are taking pictures of people we know, and most of the time the guests we know. Okay, so I would say that's a good point to be sensitive to the fact if you have a large club and a large clientele of people that you really don't know, you might want to, if you're taking pictures that night, you may just want to say, we're taking pictures here. Some of these may end up on our club website. Does anybody object? And then, of course, if somebody objected that night, I probably wouldn't put them out there. It does get to the point where why we use the photographs, I kind of backed into this. We use the photographs on our fun nights and our church events and so forth to build up our contact list. It's really very interesting. We take the picture of the group shot, and then we say that you can come to our website and look at your children or whoever on the website, and it's password protected. So they have to come to me and ask for this permission. So of course by doing that I get their email address, and then if at some future date I want to contact them, I can do that. One of the things we also have out there, we learned this from the bluegrass community, is we have a contacts mailing list where we actually ask the people to volunteer to sign up to be notified of what we're doing. And we've been quite a few people are doing that too. So now we have a list of contacts that we can communicate with of people we know want to hear from us. I mean, all of us get junk mail on the internet. People trying to sell us things, and sometimes we're quite annoyed at them, so are we going to buy a product from them? So you can actually build up a clientele list here of people that you know are interested in what you're doing. So I think this is a way we can expand and use the internet. Some of the other things, Gerry and I put the schedule out there. We use the scheduling program the same way the bluegrass people do. It's a nice thing to do. We put the schedule out there, and it automatically takes off the old material. I think that's one thing we have to be sensitive to, the fact that sometimes we get website material out there that's too old. And this way, this is automated. It automatically takes off the last month's dances, and you are fairly current. There's news items that you can also put out on our website that's automatic also, too. You can put the news items out there, and they can be automatically taken off at a future date. You have a time limit. So, I've heard this, the feeling that the Internet is taking people away from our activity, which is square dancing. Well, that may well be true to a certain extent, but maybe we have to use the Internet and turn it around to use it to our advantage. If the people are out there using the Internet, maybe we can attract them to square dancing by them coming along. We can have links to our community pages, links to some other clubs, links to people that want to reciprocate with us and put our square dance activity out there so that we can communicate with not only our dancers that we have now, our new dancers, and maybe our future dancers. If anybody wants to later on see some examples of the club pages or something or other, I have my laptop here. I can do it later on. Okay, let's go on.
Let me just say one quick thing before Paul takes over, because it's appropriate at this point, Paul. We created an idea called Winning Ways, which Bill Hyman, who I see in the audience, has graciously is going to allow us. We just had it approved, by the way, Bill, last night from the Board of Governors. And this site is something that arose out of the last year and a half of my being involved with discussion list over the web, in which I listen to people tell success stories. And I wonder why no one else is sharing those success stories. There are probably about 15 to 20% of the clubs in this country that are doing well, or at least holding their own, and actually growing. Why don't we share the story of what these people are doing correctly with the people who are having difficulty? And that's what the Winning Ways website and Winning Ways publication hopefully will do. That should be available, I would think, within the next 30 days. And that will be a series of usable explanations about people who have taken ideas and made them successful. They won't have application to everyone. In fact, probably only 10-15% will have application to any individual club. But over the course of time, everyone can, I think, find and relate to this. It'll be on a number of websites. As I mentioned, Dosedo is offered to give us the page as a link to theirs as a kind of a primary thing. The foundation will have a link also, and a number of other people have offered to be able to be linked up to this, because it makes sense. If I know what I'm doing and I'm successful with it, why shouldn't you know? And this is the thing that this web, while you and I are in a generation that has resisted it, and I did very well so myself, I resisted the whole creature, and now I spend 8 hours a day in front of it. But the fact of the matter is this is probably the single most important event in your life, in my life, in terms of communication. For the first time in the history of the world, you can be connected to every other person in the world on a personal basis at every level. And that's changing the face. That's part of what's changing the whole world, and it's doing it rapidly. So, you got to go ahead and join them, folks. It ain't going to go away. Paul?
Okay. That good? Paul Walker from Kannapolis, North Carolina. How many of you have gorillas or apes at home? Just not your children, but no. Well, just in case you do, we want to provide a little bit for everybody here. And we're going to be talking about 5 apes. Hang a banana on a string in their cage with stairs under the banana. Before long, an ape will go up the stairs, start to climb toward the banana. As soon as he touches the stairs, spray all of the apes with ice-cold water. After a while, another ape is going to make an attempt, but the result will be the same. All the apes will be sprayed with ice-cold water. This should continue through several more attempts. Pretty soon, when another ape tries to climb the stairs, the other apes will attack that gorilla or ape and not allow them to reach the banana. Now, turn off the cold water. Remove one of the original apes from the cage and replace it with a new one. The new ape will see the banana and want to climb the stairs. To his horror, all of the other apes will attack him. After another attempt, another attack. He'll know that if he tries to climb that stairs, he'll be assaulted. Next, remove another one of the original 5 apes, replace it with a new one. The newcomer will go to the stairs and be attacked. The previous newcomer will take part in the punishment. Replace the third original ape with a new one. The new one will make it to the stairs and will be attacked as well. 2 of the 4 apes that beat him will have no idea why they are not permitted to climb the stairs or why they are participating in the beating of the newest ape. After replacing the 4th and 5th original apes, all the apes which have been sprayed with cold water are gone. They've been replaced. Nevertheless, no ape will ever again approach the stairs. Why not? because that's the way they've always done it, and that's the way it's always been done around here. That's how organizational policy begins. And I really believe that's where we are in square dancing today. Progress is impossible without change. And it's unfortunate, but we have got to change. And if we don't change, we're going to be calling to a blank wall. I have a handout that you can come up and get after the session. And so I'm not going to go through and read it, but I'm going to go and hit a couple of places on this. We are marketeers, whether we like it or not. We sell this hobby wherever we go. We tell people about the hobby. It's like being a witness in a church. And maybe the only thing you know about your church is that you enjoy the music in the church. And that's all you enjoy. You should tell people about that enjoyment. Same way in square dancing. If you like the rhythm of the beat, you like the handsome caller, you should tell people. You should tell them. Is your forehead as cold as mine? Oh, excuse me. All right. Anyway, taking a look at this from a marketing perspective. Before we start recruiting, I run some training sessions with our dancers on what I want them to do. I look at it totally from a marketing perspective. One of the things that I think we lack tremendously in our hobby is the lack of leadership. The only thing that is really consistent in our hobby is us as the caller. Whether we like it or not, we are the leader of that club. We may not make all the rules and be able to vote, but we are the leader in that club. One of the things is we have to have a dream. We have to have a vision that's in the future. We have to know what we want. We need to set goals. The next kind of a leader, would you follow yourself? You have to be enthusiastic about it. I used to teach people how to make phone calls and sell products. Not to homes. Not to homes, but business to business. And one lady told me, she said, you know, I just can't get excited early in the morning. I'm a slow starter. I just can't get excited. So I tell you what you do, man, when you come to work and you're getting ready to make your first phone call to your customers, open up the middle drawer, put your left hand in it. Hey, it works. Take your right hand and slam the drawer on your left hand. And when you get that phone, you're going, hi, how are you? Oh, it's good to talk to you. You're going to be excited about something. Well, that's what we need to do. We need to get excited. All right. And don't assume that you have the skills of marketing. You do. It's training. Leaders are not born. Good marketeers are not born. They're trained. And they learn how to sell. Don't worry about failing, because we've tried so many things in over the years I've been calling. We had in Florida one time when we were living there. You know, I've got to quit moving around. I can't even remember where I live anymore. But in Florida, we were lucky. We were away from the city of Jacksonville, and we had a sort of a closed community. We divided the community up into grids. Each couple was responsible for a grid. They put flyers up, posters, put little 3x5 cards on the windshield of the automobiles. Went to shopping centers at 10 o'clock in the morning. Every car got a little card announcing open house. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, another set of cards were handed out. We had 98 students, and 73 of them graduated. These things work, and then later on we tried it 2 years later, and we only ended up with about 40-some people. I mean, it still was good, but the same thing may not work every year. Also, we need to recognize that all leaders are not on the top. We get leaders in our club who people respect, and they're people who don't even hold an office. That person has to be cultivated. One of the things I do in our clubs is that when I even suspect that somebody might be a leader, I start to develop a relationship with that person and begin to cultivate that person. Because sooner or later they're going to become an officer in the club. Always give credit to somebody for what they do. Make a big deal out of it, because none of us get paid for that. Well, do we get paid? Oh, yeah. But anyway, make sure the only pay that a dancer gets is a big thank you. So the more you make over what they do, the more you're going to motivate them to do more, and it works. You need to show people the way. If your club's going visiting and you're not busy that night, you ought to go with them. And don't feel risky about delegating something to somebody. When you give somebody a job to do, they may go from point A, B, C, D to get to F. Or somebody may go from A to F. If the job can get done, don't tell them how to do it. Let them do it their own way, because they'll follow their own plan better than your plan, guaranteed. One of the things I do is I train the club on how and what they're supposed to do during lessons, especially during open house. You can read that. I don't have to read that to you. Okay. In the package, I also have some handouts, and in the back is some resources you can look at. But the baby boomers are coming. Now, we really had we just fell into it this year. We had 6 teenagers that came. They brought their parents who were under 50. We ended up graduating 31 this year. These children are from the homeschool program. We found out that there's 2.3 million children throughout the United States in the homeschool program. There are massive organizations and tremendous businesses trying to sell these people their wares to teach at home. First of all, the people that teach at home are extremely self-motivated and disciplined. They have to be. They are looking for socialization activities for their children to go to. I talked to one of the parents of one of the children, and they said, "Oh, yeah, this is great. This is really great." And I said, "Well, I'd like to find out more about the homeschool program, and maybe get a flyer to some of the parents for next year or something." And she says, "In August we put out a newsletter. It goes to all parents of homeschooled children. In that newsletter are activities that these children can go so that they can reach and get socialization skills." She's going to make sure that we get an avenue into that newspaper, in that newsletter that goes out. It's going to be a new marketing technique, but that's where we're going to go with it, in addition to some other things that we do. The National Folk Dance Bill that is being sponsored in Congress today by Representative Jim Saxon, I think there's probably 36 or 38 states that have passed a state bill making square dancing and, quote, round dancing, traditional dancing, contra, and so forth, part of their state folk dance. If we get that on a national basis, the school systems will have to teach it. There's another in that we can have, another area to get people in lessons. And the baby boomers are coming. I mean, they're here. There's no question about it. Out in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, there was they have a bookmarker that they leave at different places. They just leave it all over town. And in the package I have here, please pick one up, there's a bookmarker. You can put it in an envelope, mail it to a friend. But these bookmarkers announce their dances and also announce when they're going to have open house and start square dance lessons. Another thing that we did this year, we made a gift certificate. And this gift certificate says, "This entitles a holder to free admission at Cardinal Squares," that's the name of the club. Lists the date and the time, Salisbury, North Carolina, directions how to get there. Good for as many people you bring. Square and line dancing will be enjoyed by all who attend. And, of course, the thing that always brings a few people, refreshments will be served. We hand this out wherever we go. We go to a restaurant, we leave some sitting on the table when we leave. I expect every person in the clubs I call for to mail out 10 of these to people they know. If they don't know anybody, just pick an address and mail it. It doesn't matter. Get rid of them. That's their responsibility. We did it in different variety of colors, and just handed them out. And I told them what I expected, and they did it, and it worked. The last item that is in the package is some resources that you can have, a list, legacy. One of the best web pages that I have ever come across in square dancing is managed by the United Square Dancers Association organization. It's USDA.org. You don't need to write it down because you have it on your package. But it's got everything that you really need on that, and it's got a lot of links to other square dance organizations as well. One of the best that they have is educational products that are available for you to go in and pull, and a lot of those things you can download right on the line. and some they do charge a very nominal fee. And I put on a training program and wrote them a letter and said that I needed 40 copies of this and just send a bill with it. There was no bill. I got the material. They didn't even charge me for it. Tremendous what they have. Lloyd Shaw Foundation has a lot of good history in it. The American College Association has a web page as well as CALLERLAB, Legacy. Just pick up one of these packages and it's there. One of the changes that's coming, and I don't know whether you have guessed it or not, but we're starting to get more young people in our clubs. I call for 3 clubs, and 2 of the clubs are mainstream with round dancing. And we're starting to get more young. When I say younger, I'm talking 50. You got to look where I'm looking down from. My wife says, "You know, those people look awful young." I said, "Honey, everybody's young to us." But we are getting younger people now in the 50s and 60s, I have to admit it. No, not 40s and 50s. Knock it off. In the 50s, when I was in high school, the girls were crinolines. I remember that. They weren't as fluffy as they are today, but they were crinolines. So when you talk to somebody that's 70, and you ask them, we do have to wear crinolines, that's no problem. They did that. But you ask somebody from the late 60s and 70s, and they'll tell you what you can do with your crinoline. It's that simple. And the dress code is starting. We have clubs in our Charlotte area now that dance casual clothes. In the summer, just about every club goes casual clubs. And my wife, who has been a supporter of square dancing for 30 years we've been dancing, she's beginning on occasion to say, "Oh, no, I got to wear a crinoline tonight." So, we're changing, and it's going to change. And the thing is that you are the motivator for your club and what they do, whether it's visitation, whether it's going on a mystery trip, whether it's going to the national convention or a state convention, to a festival, whether it's a recruitment of people. You are the ones that have to motivate them because they don't recognize the danger we're in losing this great hobby. So we are the motivators. We are the leaders, whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have about 15 minutes for some questions. That's really where the important thing. By the way, can I just ask one question? How many of you people have an email address? See there? I mean, there's your network right there. I mean, that's well, about 40% of the people in this country still don't, or about 35 to 40. But I think this is what's amazing, and we're missing we're talking about a database, and it's already by us. I mean, it's there, it's available to us. I want to echo one other thing too about this home study. I gave a talk here, matter of fact, with the Virginia State Council on Home Study last year, and in a different area. I didn't realize at the time I was here for an EC meeting anyway, so it was perfectly timed. And while there's 2.8, as he mentioned, there's estimated to be about 5.5 million people in the next 5 years, kids, who will be home studied. It's a huge area, and you've got to remember that every state has a law that every child has to have 1 hour of exercise every day. And there isn't a public school, that will even let them in the grounds because that's taking money out of their pocket. So is there a market there? You betcha. You betcha.
In the state of New Jersey, the homeschoolers, if they square dance, it goes for their gym. And it's accredited for them for gym. So we have had a lot of people who are doing that also.
Lyle Beck with United Square Dancers of America. And Paul, just to bring you up to date, USDA recently at our winter meeting decided not to charge for any of our publications. They are all available on the website for free. We used to charge for shipping and printing, but we charged for so few we decided not to charge for any. And if you want some of the bigger booklets, rather than ordering 50 from us, would encourage you to order 1 or 2 and then reprint your own. But they are all free now. And they are not copyrighted. We encourage you to copy them and spread them.
I'm Linda Shaw from Boise, Idaho, and I'm here representing CALLERLAB. And I'd just like to say I totally agree with everything you guys said. We have to change our image. We have to change the clothing. And most of all, we have to change the attitudes of the 30-year syndrome dancers. And I'd like some ideas from you on how to do that, because those guys are in charge of our associations, and we have a really hard time beating down that wall.
How do we change the image? The biggest way that we can change any image is through example. There is no other way. I'm a round dancer. I'm also a square dance caller. On a very rare occasion, I'll get up and do a line dance. But I don't want people to recognize that I can't remember all the steps. But support round dancing, support line dancing. They add not only variety to it, but they bring in people. Plus you have music going on all the time. You don't have a dead spot. And that's why it works well. As a caller, is this being taped? As a caller, I can tell the difference if you put 50 squares on a floor, and those squares that are round dancers, and those squares that are not round dancers, I can pick out who they are, because they dance to the beat and rhythm of the music.
Could I just make another comment on that? We have regional meetings of our square dance associations. A lot of times the callers shy away from going to those, and it's really a good forum to get out there and talk to the people that are really interested in what's been happening and what can be done to get our activity back to where it used to be. I find that I go to every meeting of the Callers Association, the Hudson Valley Council, and there's a lot of people that are concerned about the activity there, and you take your time for either your local caller, your CALLERLAB, or whoever you want to represent, and tell those people there what's going on. I really feel that on the local level, there's a need to get what we are professing here down to the people that are really interested, and that's a real good area to find people that are interested, your local caller club.
Yeah, I heard the lady ask the question a little more specifically. How do you change the attitudes of the 30-year-plus dancer, caller, club leader? Is that correct, Ms. Boise? That's a tough answer, and I don't know that these people heard it or whether they are having the same difficulty that the rest of us have, is how do you change that attitude? I'll be honest with you, after 45 years having my own marketing consulting business, I've never run across this particular set of problems, okay? And it is a tough one, and it will go one of a couple of ways, in my opinion. And that is that there will be people who set up and start to do things, as Paul and the Hardys have suggested, and by example, make their own changes internally within a given club. I don't think you can do it within a given federation or association at one time. I see it as a very difficult task. And those examples will hopefully show some other people that if they're going to exist in 5 to 10 years, then they have to make those changes. I wish I had an answer for that. Do you gentlemen want to address that a little more directly? Or?
One of the things that when you go into, I used to teach motivational sciences for AT&T to new managers. And to motivate people, you need to get them involved. And when you have a person that's been around since dirt, and we all know that we have those in our clubs, get that person on your side. Enlist them in any kind of a program that you're going to want them to do. Give them a part. Now, we'll have a training session from 7 to 7:30 and then have our dance. Get that person to make one of the presentations, just a small part. And tell people that you rely on the experience of this guy whose name is Methuselah. Been around 100 years. But get them involved in it. You've got to make them feel important because they are important. And it will work. I've just seen it work in too many. And my wife and I have moved 14 times, so we've had a lot of starts where we've moved from and to. And get them involved. Give them a part in your program. Make them feel important, and they'll work for you.
Paul, I'm Donnie DeVore, past president of South Carolina Callers Association, and I call for 5 clubs in the upstate of South Carolina. And matter of fact, I do have the largest club in the state. And one thing that has helped us, back in the late 70s in Greenville, we had a club called the Come Latelys. And it was a big club, and most of the people there were young. And the members started getting pregnant and having babies. So they dissolved the club. Well, a few years ago, well, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I got one of those couples to come into the Legionnaires. And they found out that the clothing had changed, and we went to the prairie skirt. So they started calling some of their friends that danced with them then. And we have really come alive with that club, bringing back people that had danced in the late 70s and early 80s and bringing them back in. And it's something that has helped the growth of our clubs. And other clubs, Tom Pusting is here. He's had the same experience there in his clubs. He's going back and getting people that danced 25 or 30 years ago. And now they are enjoying an activity that they learned some years ago, and the children are all gone. I wish it was some way that we could go to every graduating high school class and talk to those senior parents. Because when those kids graduate from high school, they're finding themselves on Friday night with no band competition on Saturday, no ball game to go to. And that's the age group that we need to get involved. And I just wish it was some way that we could touch those people. And also, I do have a website. It's squaredancecaller.org. Thank you.
I've been to your site. It's very good. One thing we are trying to do now, and we have University of Texas's Medical School Research Center, which is one of the biggest in the country, Southwest Hospital. They get about $400 million a year in granted funds for studies, and they've agreed to do a study on the exercise benefits for young people and for senior citizens. It's a twofold program. We're talking also the National Institute of Health as a seed funding source for that, and they work a lot with them anyway. And the idea being that with the pandemic condition of obesity in our schools, we now have a cause, as I mentioned before, cause marketing. We have a reason for us to take a 30-minute video tape to these people that would be, maybe you call it exercise dance. Maybe you don't call it square dancing, but it's exercise dance. But the majority or most of the moves will be built around square dance moves. And that then will be offered through school systems. But and the key is that the government will spend probably about $5 billion over the next 5 to 6 years on this business of trying to attack this idea of the obesity problem. The projections for 2050 are mind-boggling in terms of the health cost to this country. We don't have it. It will not be there. The number of people supporting the systems that pay for that through taxes are diminishing, as you know, as the boomers move through into the older age. And they are panicking in Washington in this area. So we have a wonderful opportunity if we have that kind of an alternative dance exercise program. Walking into the Department of Health and Education in Washington with a lobbyist on one arm and a senator on the other arm, I guarantee you can get the funding to take you callers into the school system in the way it should be, because you don't want that 6th grade teacher doing it. See, the studies we found in focus groups is that everyone who experiences, particularly men, square dancing when they were at elementary school, they hate it. And that's the truth. And so we have to overcome that. As opposed to the fact that everyone who experienced square dancing as an adult through a one-night stand program, CDP program, whatever it happened to be, every one of those people was 50% more likely to like square dancing, have a positive image to it, positive idea about it, and were 50% more likely to come out to when asked to come out to a square dance lesson. So the difference, we can't just train these kids in school with 6th graders anymore. 6th grade teachers, excuse me. We've got to get real people in there or real tapes in there or something. So we can get that. The funding is available through the Department of Health and Education if we can see this activity as an exercise dance alternative to what kids are doing now. The whole city of Seattle, the greater Seattle district, has thrown away all conventional exercises for the lunch hour and the exercise time, because less than 15% of the kids were taking any part in exercise. And what they're doing in Seattle, they've been looking around for something. If we had that videotape in our hand today, they'd be using it all over Seattle. They're teaching circus juggling, hip-hop dance, all kinds of alternative, but try to get kids interested and get them back into an activity. We have a wonderful opportunity in the school system to do just what this gentleman is asking about, and we all have to do it. It's our responsibility to start approaching these school districts, even before we get this stuff, and do what we all had in the 40s and 50s, dancing in these schools and in all the colleges and universities. So that's really critical.
Anybody else? Question? Bob Riggs, Denver, Colorado. I'm involved in both club dancing and a lot of community dancing. And as in the community dancing world, there's a couple of different avenues, and my question relates to The panel has spoken about what I call the intra-club marketing, and we've talked about business to individual or business to consumer marketing. I am involved in trying to put together a marketing package which is a business to business package. And in that particular area, I wrote a bunch about this to myself on the way out here on the airplane. But I'm looking at in the community environment, not targeting really recruiting for the club environment, but for the community environment, I'm looking at how do I sell to the organization. And that you mean the activity coordinators of a church, the recreation directors of a recreation center. And what I wanted to ask the panel is, what is your experience in the what I would call the business-to-business marketing world versus the business-to-individual marketing? Because we as callers, as a business, we want to market out there to the general public. Well, that's one kind of marketing that requires the flyers on windshields and so on and so forth. There's a different style of marketing that I've never heard addressed at one of the CALLERLAB conventions that relates to what I call the business-to-business marketing, and like your comments.
Well, let me comment a little bit. How many people here, how many callers here have websites? Okay, smattering, maybe a half dozen. Gerry and I have been very successful at having a presence on the web and having people in business come to us. I think when people go to the Yellow Pages in the last century, that was a place to find what they wanted. Now, the Yellow Pages, I don't think, is where they go first. I think they go to the Internet. And if they go to the Internet and they look up Square Dance calling, we should have Bob Riggs pop up, and then they will contact us. That's one way that we can get to people that we don't know about, and there's the whole world is out there, so that people can come to us. There's lists on the Internet where you can actually go to the state and find callers within your state, and then the people will come to you. I think this is something that we should not underestimate, the caller himself selling himself, but you're also, by being there, your presence there will give you an opportunity to sell our activity to somebody that comes through and looks at your site. There's a lot of interesting sites out there that have material on there that will attract people. I know some of the callers now have their actual CDs samples on their website. They have photo albums on their website so that the people that don't know anything about our activity can come, for instance, to callerbills.com, which is Bill Harrison, and they can look at what Bill does, they can look at his schedule, they can look at a photo album of some of the places he's been, some of the interesting things he does, and they also have a little sample down the bottom that he can click on and hear him actually call square dancing and the wonderful music that is in our activity. So that, I think, is our presence there, I think, is something that we need to do. And then when the people look up to have an event, that's a beginning, because if they want to hold a square dance, they'll have a caller and they'll come to us. Any other comments on really actually going to organizations?
When I first started to call, this was about 10 years ago, and I wanted to get my name out into the community to do anything. I just wanted to call, and I wanted to be able to experience that and get the experience of doing it. I sent actual letters and flyers and cards out to organizations all over. I found that it wasn't really that successful. They didn't know who I was. And I think now that we have the Internet, making that initial connection is good. But once they call you, I think if you're going to work with a family or community group, they want to meet you. Many times people think I'm a man because of my name, Gerry Hardy. So they really want to talk to me on the phone, or they want to meet me, find out who I am. In the adult education community, I also was interviewed to do an adult education course, because that's another thing I wanted to do. And I had to go for an interview, and that's really where it is at. I mean, they want to meet you. They want to see you and your enthusiasm and how you would work with people. So I think, Bob, your question on how you get out there, the initial contact through flyers is good, but you have to seek out those people too and personally connect with them in your recreation groups and your church groups and community groups. And usually it's a personal connection. It's a networking thing, with schools too. And I have to say though, I think that my students are very enthusiastic as far as square dancing goes. no longer in our school district do we teach with the records. I give square dancing in my music classes, and the education committee is developing a booklet for callers to teach in the schools. It's still in development. We still are adding things. We still are making it a better product. We hope to have it ready for callers if they want to work with children in the school. And excuse me? Well, they're elementary schools. You're dating yourself, dear, not grammar school.
I don't mean the students of square dancing.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, elementary students, elementary kids.
One thing that I found that I heard on the radio, I listen to public radio a lot, and as a nonprofit organization, they take sponsorships. And for $260, you can get your organization, your club, your business announced 4 times in one day over public radio. $260. And I am sure that if we looked into it, there are a lot of other kinds of nonprofit radio stations, religious in nature, would also have that same type of a sponsorship type of program. I don't know, it's just 4 times over during the day you sponsor that day. Yeah. I think Bill had a question, didn't you, Bill?
Yes, I've actually held back, and I'm going to make some comments that actually might surprise some of you, or then again might not surprise some of you. I'm Bill Hyman from New Hampshire, and among other things, I own www.dosado.com, D-O-S-A-D-O. If you mistype it and go to Dosido, I own that one too. It's going to take you to Dosado. The reason why I say it might surprise you, it may sound like I am doing self-promotion here, but I do have to tell you it's a not-for-profit site. It was founded in 1994 by Rob French, who did a marvelous job in structuring the site. In 1999, Peggy and I made a very serious decision, chatted with Rob. We took over the responsibility of that site, and as with some other people in this room who've been very generous donors, Peggy and I have put tens and tens of thousands of dollars into that site for free to be helpful to this community. We're certainly not asking for thanks, but we are asking for help on that. I think 3 comments. Number 1, if you go to almost any search engine and you type in the words square dance, square dancing, or square dance music, or square dance history, you will end up on my page as probably the number 1 choice. If I'm not number 1, I might be number 3. But from Google, AltaVista, Excite, any of the, well, Excite's gone, but anyway, but all of the engines, pretty much all of the engines, it takes you there. That's for a host of reasons, not the least of which is, first, early bird gets the worm. Those search engines are, in fact, somewhat time dependent, and if you've been there for that long, it's really, it's unlikely that we're going to get knocked out of that position. The purpose of this site is singular. The purpose of this site is to drive traffic to your website. It has no inherent profit in it. I happen to put my business under there, frankly, so I can, from a tax point of view, still pay for it. We host the record business under there. But the reality is the purpose of the site is quite singular. It is to drive traffic to your site. There are 1,600 callers on there, several hundred queuers listed on there with information that they have asked us to list. We have thousands of clubs, organizations, publications. It is, in fact, larger than every website that has been mentioned so far, and there are some wonderful ones, particularly USDA. Our website has more information on it than actually all of those combined. Let me allow 2 other comments on that. There are some other wonderful websites out there. There is Cedar, Vic and Debbie Cedar here. They have a wonderful website. It's called cedar.net, C-E-D-E-R.net. It is particularly oriented towards advanced and challenge dancing, but it has a ton of other content on there, and they also now host the Article Co-op Archives, which Debbie Bliss used to run. It is a wonderful collection of 300 and some odd articles. There are lots of things on there. We have hundreds of articles, by the way, on our website, too, and you're free as long as you give full credit both to our website and to the individual authors of those. You're certainly free to copy those and use those for any promotional purposes at all. You have squaredance.ws, which is American Square Dance Magazine, which is the traditional monthly magazine, Modern Western Monthly magazine. You have a brand new publication called Square Dancing Today, which has its first issue coming out this week, next week.
We had March 15th, but within the next 2 or 3 days.
And they have a website called squaredancing.com, squaredancingtoday.com, and it's a wonderful website, and it will be filled with a lot more content over time as the magazine exists, and I had the pleasure of actually writing an article for their very first issue. You also have another website run by Henry Israel. It's called squaredancing.com, and it has a somewhat different focus on that. It's a little bit smaller than a lot of the other websites. As far as traffic per day, I spoke with Henry, I'm guessing 2 years ago. He was getting 120 visitors a day. I'm sure that that's significantly increased. As of last month, our website has an average unique visitor count. That means that one person visiting within a 24-hour period, we're getting 1,654 visitors a day. It's a huge traffic volume, and that traffic leaves our site as soon as they get to the page that they want, and they find your club in your area or the caller. They leave our site, and that's just fine. The purpose of the site, as I said before, is to drive traffic. So my request to you is to ask yourselves, your friends, your fellow callers, your fellow queuers, other instructors, your clubs, your regional associations, and your regional publications to submit free listings on the site. We do not charge for it. And let us know what you'd like listed, and we'll drive the traffic back to your site. Thank you.
Anna Dixon, Square Dance Foundation of New England, and I would like to address Bob's comment on how to reach businesses. I had a very unique experience where just a few months ago, a meeting events planner called up because he had got our name from the Eastern States Exposition, which is held every September, and we have got 5 of the 6 New England states to allow us to present an interactive square dance demo, and the people just love it. When they called, I was so surprised because I thought, where did this Boston events planner hear about the Square Dance Foundation? And what they wanted, all of you callers, is a 30-minute video so that they can judge whether they want you as a caller to promote some type of a Western night to whatever business wants one. And as it so happened, it was very tragic that that event was on the same day of the World Trade Centers. So naturally, it was canceled. But businesses are looking to put on something that's going to be fun for their employees. This would have been over 1,500 people, this particular business. So think of that. If you know of any event planners, and you do find them in the internet or in the Yellow Pages, if you make yourself a video, send it out and see how well you do. But I thought that would be interesting. I'm sure I had never heard of that before. Thank you.
Just make a quick one on that. Within a 5-mile radius of any major urban area, there's 3,000 to 5,000 independent organizations, everything from the Legal Secretaries of America right on down the line. Each one of these organizations has 2 things in common. They have to have an annual fundraiser for the most part, or a party, which is the same thing, and they seek just what this lady has spoken of. They seek an evening of entertainment, and you have a very good one. So there is a lot of opportunities. I met a caller in Texas recently, and he decided to focus on the Baptist church of all things. And I said, if you're going to looking for people to dance, why did you go to the Baptist church? He said, but they don't. The young students in Baptist colleges, they dance like crazy. And he is working full time, doing nothing but calling for young Baptist church organizations. And he says he's just got an unlimited amount of people if he really wanted to mine that field. But you can take any one of these areas. You know, there's one well-known Mormon caller, and when I asked about this the other day, oh, well, that's Smith. He's got that area. Well, you know how many Mormons there are in the world? One caller can't be calling them all. So someone should sit in one of the wards or stakes or any major area and talk about this as a family night project, a family night entertainment area, and I guarantee you it's there. You may have to train a couple of Mormon callers to go with you, but the fact is that there is a business-to-business opportunity. I love that idea because there are just a countless number of nonprofit or work organizations in every given area.
Shirley Greenwood from Ontario, Canada. I did some work with volunteer for summer theaters, and I'm going to throw this out because it worked for us. We put together a CD to go to business, and we created it on theater, and we sent it out, and it worked really well because they will not read, as you said, but you put a disc on their desk, and they will shove it in at some point, make it short to the point, but show it on their screen, and we had more calls than you can take, and what is it, 50 cents to make a video, to make a CD? It worked for us. Try it. We did it on CD-ROM. And you just... Was it interactive? Was it video or just music or just... We did it music and pictures. Music and pictures. Still pictures. Showing the theater and what was on, music in the background, actors talking in the background, et cetera, just transfer it over. But amazing, where they won't read for 30 seconds, they will pop that in the CD-ROM.
if anybody's still alive. I really want to thank you because so often we have avoided the whole subject of marketing in this activity because it's kind of fearful. And the fact of the matter is we need to move that to the foreground, as a lot of people are realizing. Thank you very much. Tomorrow morning and one more afternoon. All right. Thank you. Goodness. Jim. My daughter's a student down there at Southwest. Really? Yeah. You're kidding. She's a PhD candidate in biochemistry. Yeah, those people. They're funny. Yeah. It's the number one funded research hospital in America. Right. He's working on anti-shooting tickets. Good. Jennifer Jaworski. J-A-W-O-R-S-K-I. Oh, okay. Yeah. She's about halfway through her PhD program. Biology? Biochemistry. Well, what a great combination. Explain me what you're doing. That's your daughter?